of wet dog. Larry, Jack said as they walked up the stairs. Don't ever mention the word wellness in this house again. Chapter 10, The Secret Admirer and the Mixed-Up Mail. A few days later, a mysterious, unmarked envelope arrived in the mail addressed to the beautiful resident of apartment 201. Oh, my gosh! Chrissy squealed, snatching the envelope from the hallway table. It's a secret admirer. I knew that new hairspray was working. Jana looked over her shoulder. Wait, it doesn't say which beautiful resident. It could be me. Or, well, technically it could be Jack. Jack walked out of the kitchen, wearing his world's okayest chef apron. I'll take it. I've been feeling very radiant lately. The letter was filled with poetic declarations of love and an invitation to a candlelit dinner at Le Chat Noir, the fanciest restaurant in town, on Friday night. I will be wearing a red carnation, the letter concluded. The entire week was filled with speculation. Each roommate convinced themselves they were the true object of the mystery person's affection. Chrissy practiced her surprised princess face. Johnny bought a new silk dress, and Jack spent hours perfecting a sophisticated, mysterious laugh. On Friday night, they all arrived at Le Chat Noir at the same time, each hoping to beat the others to the table. They sat together in a tense, awkward booth, scanning the room for a red carnation. Suddenly, a man approached. He was tall, wearing a very expensive suit and a bright red carnation. He stopped at their table, looked at the trio, and frowned. Is there a problem, sir? Jack asked, trying to sound suave, but mostly sounding like he had a piece of spinach stuck in his teeth. I am looking for the resident of apartment 201, the man said. The one I have been watching from across the street. The one with the flamboyant style. Jana and Chrissy looked at each other, then at Jack. Jack puffed out his chest. That would be me. The man looked Jack up and down. No, I am looking for the one in the colorful caftans. The one with the magnificent bangles. The trio fell silent. From behind them, Helen Roper stepped into the restaurant, wearing her most vibrant orange caftan and enough jewelry to set off a metal detector. Stanley was too tired for dinner, Helen said, smiling at the man. But I told him I had a prior engagement. Thank you for the letter, Harold. It's about time someone noticed the view from the ground floor. The trio watched as Helen and Harold were ushered to a private booth. Well, Jana said, picking up a breadstick. I guess we know who the beautiful resident is now. Jack sighed, slumping in his seat. I should have known. Nobody writes poetry like that for a guy who smells like onions. Epilogue, the 70s glow. The decade of disco, polyester, and bell-bottoms continued to swirl around them like a colorful kaleidoscope. Every week brought a new confusion, a new lady friend for Jack to accidentally offend, or a new scheme by Stanley to save a buck on his property taxes. Through it all, the stucco building on the corner remained a beacon of light-hearted chaos in a changing world. Jack would go on to perfect his souffle and his slapstick timing, Chrissy would eventually learn to lock the door while sleepwalking, or at least wear a more substantial robe. And Jana would keep the peace with a steady hand and a florist's infinite patience for delicate things. And Helen Roper? She'd keep filing her nails and wearing her flamboyant caftans, watching the drama of the kids upstairs unfold with a knowing, weary smile, waiting for the day Stanley might finally notice her new black nightgown or at least remember their next anniversary without the help of a stray puppy. But for now, the beers at the Beagle were cold, the laughter in apartment 201 was loud, and the door was always open mostly because Chrissy forgot to lock it again. Three's Company, the Santa Monica Chronicles, adapted by Gemini the novelist. Prologue, the house on the corner. The Pacific breeze carried the scent of salt and gasoline through the sun-drenched streets of Santa Monica, drifting past the swaying palm trees and settling into the stucco crevices of a modest, slightly weathered apartment building. To any casual passerby, it was just another piece of prime California real estate, a two-story structure with a peeling white facade and a landlord who looked like he had been born in a cardigan. But inside its walls, a delicate, hilarious, and entirely accidental social experiment was underway. On the ground floor lived the Ropers. Stanley Roper, a man whose personality was as rigid as his plumbing was leaky, spent his days grumbling about the rising cost of living and his nights avoiding his wife's romantic advances. Helen Roper, a woman whose vibrant spirit and colorful caftans were often dampened by her husband's singular focus on rent and repressed desires, lived for the gossip of the building. Upstairs, in apartment 201, lived a trio that defied every convention of 1977. Jana Wood, a practical, grounded florist with a sharp wit. Chrissy Snow, a secretary whose heart was as gold as her hair, though her mind was often lost in a haze of sweet confusion. And Jack Tripper, a clumsy but charming culinary student. Jack was living the ultimate life, pretending to be gay to appease Stanley Roper's old-fashioned sensibilities and keep a roof over his head with two beautiful women. It was a house of cards held together by misunderstanding, double entendres, and the desperate need to make the $300 rent. Chapter 1, The New York Hurricane. The morning sun hit the Ropers' kitchen with a harsh, unforgiving glare that perfectly matched Stanley's mood. He sat at the yellow formica table, his eyes fixed on a newspaper he wasn't really reading, his ears straining for any sound from the guest bedroom. "Be quiet, Helen," Stanley hissed, the sound sharp enough to cut through the smell of burnt coffee. "You're gonna wake Karen." Helen Roper didn't stop. She continued filing her nails with a rhythmic, abrasive sound that echoed in the small kitchen like a carpenter at work. She looked at her husband with a mixture of amusement and practiced exhaustion. "Filing my nails is gonna wake up your niece. It's not the filing, Stanley, it's the breaking. Every time you break a nail, You swear loud enough to wake the dead. Oh, so that's what got you up. Just hold it down, will you? Stanley snapped, adjusting his glasses. The girl flew in from New York and she's tired. You've heard of jet lag, haven't you? Ellen leaned back, her caftan